I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with the cattle market summary for the week ending March the 20th. We had a big difference between the demand for feeder cattle and stocker cattle, which you might expect for this time of year. Big demand for stocker cattle as the temperatures are warming up and time is turning into spring. We're getting into the green grass. Feeder cattle demand was not as heavy, but still pretty decent, with a lot of those big heavy wheat cattle coming off as we ended the normal term for wheat grazing there, and a lot of big runs of heavy wheat cattle coming off, and feedlots really like those kind of cattle, so they did demand them and absorbed a big run of them this week. And overall, your feeder cattle going right into the feedlot, still sold mostly steady, with a late week run up making up for a lot of the losses that happened early in the week. Stocker cattle and calves were crazy this week, continued on from the last week or two, as there's just not many of them out there. To really assemble any numbers, you have to go to the southeast, where there's more year-round calvers down there and a lot more lightweight cattle. But just outstanding demand anywhere that they showed up. Prices run evenly steady, up to $7 higher, and that's on top of a pretty active market we had last week. Auction runs were heavy this past week. Receipts were actually almost 25% heavier than the same week a year ago, so we're starting to catch up on that feeder and stocker cattle marketing that we were behind because of those weather delays that we had there a month or so ago. And big runs everywhere, all across Oklahoma and southwest Kansas, coming off the wheat pasture there, but also big runs going on the east side of the Mississippi River there. Especially in Kentucky and Tennessee, because they were the states and the areas that were hit hardest by that most recent ice storm. And they had to have some big runs to kind of catch up on the marketing that they were behind on. Of course, Kentucky's awful excited about college basketball right now, especially there in Lexington. We had one Wildcat fan that was celebrating a little bit early at the Bluegrass Stockyards this week on Tuesday there. Guy had a load of steers weighing 781 pounds, bring 220. And that, with some cattle weighing that close to 8 to bring 220, that's a big price. I don't care if you're in the Sandhills of Nebraska, it's a big price, especially if you're in Kentucky somewhere and there's a lot of freight to get those cattle to a major feedlot or any major feedlot demand. But it's March Madness time, and that goes mostly for the stocker cattle and the calves, because this green grass is coming, temperatures are warmed up, and you can just see the horizon turning green all over the country. And it's just sacrilegious to have some pasture and not have some calves or stocker cattle to turn out on it. And be the same if you had some good bottom ground out there and just let it sit idle all growing season. It's not going to happen. You're going to get some cattle put together to turn out. Probably too late if you don't already have cows put together to turn out on some grass. So they're going to buy some lightweight cattle and turn them out there. A lot of the order buyers that buy those calves and stockers just had instructions to just get them. Not really a price there, just whatever weight they were buying, whatever sex, kind, class, just get them. And that makes it really easy for your market supporters, guys in the market, guys that typically pick around the edges of the market, just to get in and push those guys, because they know there's no risk of getting caught with the cattle. Just kind of fun to see how far they'll go when you're sitting in an auction setting, and that's something you don't get when you're out in the country, is some guys just pushing for sport. But also you did get some support from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange feeder cattle futures this week, especially on Wednesday there. Your out front feeder cattle futures were over $4 higher, and that just put a lot of your guys at ease that were buying background in cattle, because they're really going to need that out front support, and did get some of that this week. But when the grass starts getting green and people just lose their minds, this week you saw some stocker cattle and calves, especially those weighing 550 to 650 that had some condition. You saw guys giving more for them than they could even get if they got what the August feeders are showing right now to get the first cost back. And when you're starting out the season, the grazing season, behind like that, it's not nearly as much fun as it is whenever you're buying some cattle with a lot of opportunity to make money. But still, they're going to buy them, and that's just all there is to it. The biggest thing that's been pushing down on the cattle markets for the last, or pretty much all year, this calendar year, is the strength of the U.S. dollar. And we hate to say that it's bad, but because it's good for the economy and everything. But when the dollar is as strong as it is right now, it just makes our products so expensive for our foreign customers to buy. And we saw some slippage of that dollar this week, and it was almost entirely responsible for the support we found on the CME cattle futures. These packers have really pulled back on their slaughter rates, trying to get through this tough time, and your cattle on feed numbers are probably not going to change the market any. Friday's cattle on feed report come out, and it was pretty much pegged. Your on feed numbers were 99% of a year ago. Placements were 92, which was a little bit lower than what they expected, but not enough to make any difference. And marketings were 98%, which was a little bit higher. So if there was any change from what they thought it was to the good of the cattle market, but probably not enough to really change anything one way or the other. Your beef packers have really struggled so far this calendar year. Their sales going out the back door have not been that good. That bad weather they had in the major population areas of the Northeast really cut sales back of beef and all kinds of products there. But they have really had a hard time, and then they're trying to get through this period of really short numbers of market-ready cattle. Now, your cattle feeders, your feedlot guys, are not really crying their eyes out about that because they go through hard times all the time. And they're trying to take advantage of these light numbers of market-ready cattle until they kind of run out here going later into the spring. So they're trying to get all they can out of the market to keep from chopping it back whenever they get into some bigger numbers of cattle. But, cattle feeders only wish that they had it as good as the packers do. They never really get to take full advantage of the market. They're not able to get all the leverage that the packers have when the conditions are on their side. Your feedlot guys would love to be able to captivate the bulk of their needs at yesterday's prices. They can't. They have to get out there and battle with other guys, sit in a sale barn and look across at them and bid against other guys for cattle. And packers just don't have to do that. And your cattle feeders, would love to get in there and be able to kind of slow play the market until the end of the week, and then keep the base price low by paying bonuses that are unreported and don't affect your weighted average there. But that's just the way things are right now, and until something changes, it's pretty tough sledding to feed cattle. They did have a rare victory this week. Fat cattle sold 2 to $2.50 higher from $163 to $165. Dress sales $3 to $4 higher from $260 to $261. Check out DVAuction. Still got a lot of bull sales coming now, getting into May. So April will be a lot of big bull sales. We have a good slate of regular weekly feeder cattle auctions on there. So check out DVAuction.com. For this report and more information, check out the StockExchangeNews.com. And from a home DV auction office here in Maysville, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.